Hello and welcome to Lucid Mind Chemistry channel with Majid. In this video, I'll be solving Chemistry O-Levels Multiple Choice, Paper 11 from May-Jun 2018. You can go to any particular question by following timestamps given in the video description. Let's start. Question 1. A gas is less dense than air and dissolves in water. Which diagram shows the correct method of collecting this gas? Less dense means that it will move upwards in air because of low density. So we are going to use upward delivery for collection. Second thing is dissolution in water, as it dissolves in water, so therefore we are not going to use water. Let's look at the options. In option A, we can see that it is downward delivery, as the gas is less dense, so therefore it will escape upwards. So A is incorrect. B shows the process in which upward delivery takes place, so therefore this one is correct, as gas is less dense. In part C, we have sideways delivery. Again, diffusion can take place and gas can escape, so therefore C is not used. In option D, separation is taking place by the help of displacement of water, as the gas is water soluble, so therefore we are not going to use this method. Correct method is therefore B. Question 2. Which mixture can be separated into its components by adding water, stirring, and then filtering? In part A, we have a mixture of calcium carbonate and sodium chloride, as we know that calcium carbonate is insoluble in water while sodium chloride is soluble to form aqueous solution. So we can add water. What will happen that sodium chloride will dissolve in water while calcium carbonate will be left behind, and upon filtration calcium carbonate is separated as residue while water will be gone in the filtrate. In this way both can be separated, so therefore option A seems to be correct. In part B, we have magnesium metal and iron metal. Now both magnesium metal and iron metal is insoluble in water. So therefore, as none of them is soluble, they cannot be separated by adding water, stirring and filtering. Option C, we have sodium chloride and copper 2 sulfate. Now sodium chloride and copper 2 sulfate both are water soluble, so therefore they cannot be separated by dissolution in water and filtration. So option C is also incorrect. In part D, we have a mixture of sulfuric acid and hydrochloric acid. Again, both sulfuric acid and hydrochloric acid is water soluble and they cannot be separated by filtration. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 3. Tests were carried out on an aqueous solution of an unknown compound P. The observations are recorded in the table. This is the test that was done and these are the observations that were made. Which ions are present in P? We have to find the cations and anions. In cations we have chromium plus 3 and iron plus 2, while in anion we have chloride and sulfate. First, let's look into the cations. We have chromium plus 3 on one side, while we have iron plus 2 on the other side. Now, upon addition of aqueous sodium hydroxide, chromium plus 3 gives green precipitate, which is soluble in excess sodium hydroxide. While in iron plus 2, when aqueous sodium hydroxide is added, green precipitate is formed and this precipitate is insoluble in excess. As in the test, we can see when aqueous sodium hydroxide is added, it forms green precipitate which is soluble in excess, giving a green solution. So therefore it should be chromium plus 3. So it is either A or B. It is not C and D because iron plus 2 is insoluble in excess. Second test is of anion and it should be between these two. One is chloride anion while other is sulfate anion. First test is to add dilute nitric acid and then aqueous barium nitrate. This is the test for sulfate anion. What happens that barium will react with sulfate to form barium sulfate which is insoluble white precipitate. So we can say that in sulfate nitric acid along with barium nitrate solution, these are added. What will happen that barium plus 2 will react with sulfate to form barium sulfate solid which is white precipitate. So this is true for sulfate, so it could be B. If nitric acid and barium nitrate is added to chloride anion, what will happen that barium plus 2 will react with chloride to form barium chloride, and barium chloride does not form white precipitate. So therefore chloride is incorrect. Again in the last test we can see that dilute nitric acid is added, then aqueous silver nitrate is added. So we have nitric acid and silver nitrate. Now silver ion from silver nitrate will react with chloride anion to form precipitate of silver chloride which is insoluble. As it says no precipitate is formed, it means that the anion is sulfate, it is not chloride. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 4. Which substance would diffuse most quickly? For diffusion, you should always remember that diffusion is directly proportional to the temperature. This is because temperature increases the kinetic energy of the molecules and higher kinetic energy means faster rate of diffusion. Second thing is the molecular mass. Now diffusion is always inversely proportional to molecular mass or atomic mass if this is a single atom. It means lighter gas will diffuse faster while heavier gas will diffuse slower. In option A and B we have carbon dioxide, while in option C and D we have neon. Carbon dioxide is CO2. We have one carbon which is 12 and 2 oxygen which is 32. So the molecular mass comes equal to 44. Secondly, we have neon. The atomic mass of neon according to periodic table is 20. Now the rate of diffusion of neon should be faster because its atomic mass is less as compared to the molecular mass of carbon dioxide. So it is either C or D. In part C we have 0 degree centigrade and in part D we have 25 degree centigrade. So at higher temperature the diffusion will be faster. Answer is D. Question 5. The ion Q plus 2 has 3 complete shells of electrons. What is Q? We have calcium, magnesium, oxygen and sulfur. In periodic table we can see that the atomic number of calcium is 20. So therefore 20 electrons are present. For magnesium the atomic number is 12. So 12 electrons are present in neutral magnesium. While in oxygen 8 electrons are present and in sulfur 16 electrons are present as the atomic number of sulfur is 16. Now we can do the electronic configuration in terms of shells. For calcium, in first shell we have 2 electrons, then in second we have 8. In third again we have 8 electrons, while in fourth shell we have 2 electrons. This is for neutral calcium. Now as calcium is in group 2 of the periodic table, it will lose these 2 electrons to form calcium plus 2. the electronic configuration of calcium plus 2 is 288. Now calcium plus 2 has 3 complete shells of electrons, so therefore it could be correct option. For magnesium, the electronic configuration of shells would be 2, 8, and then we have 2 electrons that are left. So we have 3 shells, and upon loss of electrons, magnesium will again lose 2 electrons as it belongs to group 2 of the periodic table. So the electronic configuration would be 2, 8. Now it has just 2 complete shells instead of 3, so therefore B is wrong. C is oxygen, atomic number is 8. So the electronic configuration will be 2, 6 as there are 8 electrons in neutral oxygen atom. Now after losing 2 electrons, it will become oxygen plus 2. Now the electronic configuration will be 2, 4. It does not consist of 3 complete shells, so therefore oxygen is incorrect. Last one is sulfur. We have atomic number 16, so there are 16 electrons. Electronic configuration will be 2, 8, 6. After losing 2 electrons, it will become sulfur plus 2 and the electronic configuration will become 2, 8 and 4. We can see the third shell is incomplete, so therefore sulfur is also incorrect. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 6. The diagrams show the arrangement of particles in 3 solids. We have X, Y and Z. The 3 solids are krypton, potassium and sodium chloride. Which row correctly identifies X, Y and Z? Now looking at the structures of X, Y and Z, we can see that in X we have opposite ions. One is positive ion which is surrounded by negative ion. So this is the crystal lattice or the ionic lattice of ionic compound. In Y we can see that we have positive ions surrounded by a sea of negative electrons. So this is the structure of metal. In Z we can see that we have similar size of atoms and they are present close together. So therefore this is the structure of an element in solid state. From the given options we can see that krypton is an element, so therefore Z should be krypton. Krypton is a noble gas member. Second is we have potassium. Potassium is a metal, so therefore this is the structure of metal, so Y should be potassium. Third one is sodium chloride, as sodium chloride is ionic compound, so therefore X should be sodium chloride. So from options we can see that X should be sodium chloride, Y should be potassium and Z should be krypton. Answer should be D. Question 7. In the electrolysis of copper sulfate aqueous, what is the ionic equation for the reaction at the cathode? In aqueous copper sulfate we have copper plus 2, sulfate negative 2. We also have H plus and OH negative. In aqueous form, now we know that cation always moves towards cathode and at cathode reduction takes place. Now among these two ions we have copper plus 2 and H plus. Copper plus 2 will be easily discharged as it is below in discharge series. So copper plus 2 will move towards cathode. It will gain 2 electrons to form copper solid. The gain of electron is called reduction. This equation is given in part B, so B is the correct answer. Question 8. We have ethane, C2H6 and ammonia, NH3. They are covalent compounds which are formed by the sharing of electrons. The dot and cross diagrams of these compounds are shown. This is ethane and this is ammonia. Which statements are correct? Number 1. A molecule of ethane contains twice as many hydrogen atoms as a molecule of ammonia. Let's count the number of hydrogen atoms. We have 6 hydrogen atoms in ethane and 3 hydrogen atoms in ammonia. So therefore option 1 is correct. Option 2. An unreacted nitrogen atom has 5 outer electrons. Now nitrogen belongs to group 5 of the periodic table, and in group 5 the elements have 5 valence shell electrons. In the diagram we can see that X represents the electrons of nitrogen, as there are 5 X, so therefore it means 5 electrons are present. Statement 2 is also correct. Option 3. In a molecule of ethane, the bond between the carbon atoms is formed by sharing 2 electrons, one from each carbon atom. Now we can see in the diagram that this is the shared pair of electron between carbons. One electron is donated by one carbon while second electron is donated by second carbon, and a single bond is formed between these 2 carbon atoms. So therefore statement 3 is also correct. Answer is therefore A. Question 9. Which statement is correct? Option A. All compounds are ionic. This is incorrect because compounds can also be covalent in nature. Part B. All compounds conduct electricity when molten. This is incorrect because only metals and ionic compounds, they can conduct electricity in molten state. Covalent compounds, for example, we have methane, ethanol, they cannot conduct electricity in liquid state. Option C. Each element only contains one type of atom. This is a true statement because element is a pure substance and it contains of only one type of atoms. For example, sodium is an element and all the atoms will be of sodium. Part D. In a mixture of substances, the proportions of the substances are always the same. This is incorrect because in mixtures we can use any proportion. We can use 1:1, we can use 1:10. So any proportion will be correct. Correct answer is therefore C. Question 10. When one volume of gas R reacts with exactly 5 volumes of oxygen, it forms carbon dioxide and water only. What is R? For reactions of gases, you can take volume as moles. So we can say that when 1 mole of gas R reacts with exactly 5 moles of oxygen, it forms carbon dioxide and water only. Let's write the balanced chemical equation. First one is butane. We have C4H10. It will combust in the presence of oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water vapors. Let's balance this equation. We have 4 carbon atoms, so we can write 4 with CO2. Now we have 10 hydrogen atoms, so we can write 5 with H2O to make it 10 hydrogens. Now we have 8 plus 5, 13 oxygen atoms on the product side, so we can make this 13 by writing 13 by 2. As 13 by 2 is more than 5, so therefore 1 mole of butane, it requires more than 5 moles of oxygen. So A is incorrect. In part B, we have ethane, C2H6. We have oxygen, it forms CO2 and H2O. Again, we can start balancing from carbon. We have 2 carbon atoms, so we can write 2 with CO2. Now we have 6 hydrogen, so we can write 3 with H2O to make it 6. Now we have 4 oxygen atoms in CO2 and 3 oxygen atoms in H2O. So in total we have 7 oxygen atoms in the product side. So we can write 7 by 2. As 7 by 2 is less than 5 moles, so therefore 1 mole of ethane requires less than 5 moles of oxygen. So B is also wrong. Option C, we have methane, CH4. Let's write the balanced equation for methane. Let's balance carbon. We have one carbon on the reactant side, one on the product side, so it is already balanced. We have 4 hydrogen atoms, so we can write 2 with H2O to make it 4. Now we have 4 oxygen atoms, so we can write 2 with oxygen to make it 4. Now 1 mole of CH4 requires 2 moles of oxygen, or we can also say that 1 volume of CH4 requires 2 volumes of oxygen for complete combustion. This is also wrong. Last one is propane. We have C3H8. Again, it reacts with oxygen. We have 3 carbon atoms, so we can write 3 with CO2. We have 8 hydrogen atoms, so we can write 4 with H2O. Now we have 6 and 4, 10 oxygen on the product side, so we can write 5 with O2 to make it 10. Now we can see that 1 volume of propane requires 5 volumes of oxygen. So this is according to the statement. Correct answer is D. Question 11. 2 characteristics of gas G are given. First is that G reduces copper to oxide to a pink-brown solid, which is copper. And 1.4 grams of G has a volume of 1.2 decimeter cube at room temperature and pressure. What is G? From first option, we can deduce that as copper oxide is converted into copper solid, so it means that G is a reducing agent. From second option, we can find out the atomic mass or the molecular mass of gas G. We have 1.4 grams of G and a volume of 1.2 decimeter cube. Let's first convert this volume into moles. For gas, we know that number of moles is equal to volume in decimeter cube divided by 24 decimeter cube. Putting in values, we have 1.2 divided by 24. It comes equal to 0.05 moles. Now as we have moles and we also have mass, we can find the molecular mass. The formula is number of moles is equal to mass in grams divided by molecular mass, or we can also rearrange molecular mass will be equal to mass in grams divided by number of moles. Now mass in grams is given, it is 1.4 and number of moles are calculated, it is 0.05. The answer comes equal to 28. So this is the molecular mass of the gas that we are looking for. First one is carbon monoxide. The atomic mass of carbon is 12, while for oxygen it is 16. 16 and 12 makes 28. So it should be true. Secondly, we can see that carbon monoxide is a reducing agent. It can take oxygen from copper to make copper and CO2. So both statements are true for carbon monoxide. In option B, we have hydrogen. The atomic mass of hydrogen is 1 plus 1. It comes equal to 2. As we need 28, so therefore B is incorrect. For nitrogen, the atomic mass is 14 plus 14. So we have 28. Now nitrogen is not a reducing agent, so therefore this is incorrect. And last option, we have nitrogen and oxygen, nitrogen monoxide. So 14 plus 16, it comes equal to 30. So D is also incorrect. Only correct option is A. Question 12. The relative formula mass of 4 compounds are given. A student has 1.0 grams sample of each compound. Which sample contains the highest number of moles of oxygen atoms? Let's first find the number of moles of these compounds. The formula is number of moles is equal to mass in grams divided by molecular mass, or the formula mass in this case. Formula mass is already given and mass in grams is also given, so we can find the number of moles. It will be 1 divided by 102, which is equal to 0.0098 moles. For copper oxide, we can also find the number of moles 1 divided by 80. It will be equal to 0.0125 moles of copper oxide. Third one is sulfuric acid. So it will be 1 divided by 98. And the number of moles come equal to 0.0102. Last one is nitric acid. So it will be 1 divided by 63, which is equal to 0.0159 moles. Now, if we take the compound in terms of moles, we can say that 1 mole of aluminum oxide, it consists of 2 moles of aluminum atoms and 3 moles of oxygen atoms. So in 1 mole of compound aluminum oxide, we have 3 moles of oxygen. Similarly, in 1 mole of copper oxide, we have 1 mole of oxygen. In 1 mole of sulfuric acid, we have 4 moles of oxygen atoms. In 1 mole of nitric acid, we have 3 moles of oxygen atoms. So to find the number of oxygen atoms in 0.0098 moles, we can multiply 0.0098 with 3. It will give us the number of moles of oxygen atoms. It is equal to 0.0294 moles of oxygen atoms. Similarly, for copper oxide, we have 0.0125 moles of copper oxide. So we can find the number of moles of oxygen by multiplying 0.0125 with 1, as we have just one oxygen atom in the formula of CuO. So the number of oxygen atoms is equal to 0.0125 moles. Similarly, for third one, we can multiply 0.0102 with 4. So it comes equal to 0.0408 moles of oxygen atoms. Similarly, for D, we can multiply 0.0159 with 3. So it comes equal to 0.0476 moles of oxygen atoms. By comparing the number of moles of oxygen atoms, we can see that the largest value is obtained in part D, because more number of moles means more number of oxygen atoms. Therefore, answer is D. Question 13. The diagram shows an electrolysis experiment using inert electrodes. Before electrolysis, this was the case, and after electrolysis, we can see that gases are formed. On negative electrode, more volume of gas is produced as compared to the positive electrode. What could be liquid? Why? In A, we have aqueous copper 2 sulfate. In aqueous copper 2 sulfate, we have copper plus 2. We also have sulfate, and as we have water, so we have H plus ions and OH negative ions. Now among cations, we have copper plus 2 and H plus, and among these two cations, copper plus 2 easily gains electrons as compared to H plus. So therefore copper plus 2 will be discharged to form copper solid, and as copper plus 2 is cation, it will move towards cathode to form copper solid. No hydrogen gas is formed at cathode. As in diagram, we have seen that at both electrodes gas was formed, so therefore A is incorrect. Part B is concentrated aqueous sodium chloride. Now we have sodium ions, chloride ions that represent in larger amount as it is concentrated. We also have H plus and OH negative from water. Now among cations, H plus is easily discharged as compared to sodium plus from the discharge series. So we can say that hydrogen gas is formed at the cathode. The reaction will be like this. We have H plus. It will gain electron to form hydrogen. Now among anions, the concentration of chloride is higher than the concentration of OH negative. So therefore chloride ions will move towards anode and they will lose electrons to form chlorine. We can also balance this one. Now in the reactions we can see that the number of electrons gained and lost are equal, and one volume of hydrogen is formed and one volume of chlorine is formed. The volumes formed are equal, while in the diagram the volumes were not equal. Therefore B is also incorrect. In part C we have dilute sulfuric acid, so we have H plus ions from sulfuric acid and H plus ions from water. We also have sulfate ions from sulfuric acid and OH negative ions from water. As we have only H plus as cation, so cation will move towards cathode to form hydrogen gas. It will gain electrons to form H2. Among anions, we know that sulfate ions are not discharged, only hydroxide ions are discharged. So the equation will be like this. OH negative will move towards anode and it will lose electrons to form water and oxygen. We can balance this equation by writing 4 with OH negative and 4 electrons are lost. 2 moles of water is formed and 1 mole of oxygen gas is formed. Now as we can see that the number of electrons gained were only 2 while the number of electrons lost are 4. So we can balance the number of electrons gained and lost by multiplying this equation with 2. So when it is multiplied by 2, the volumes of hydrogen gas will be doubled as compared to the volume of oxygen gas. And as H plus is cation, it will move towards cathode and more volume of hydrogen will be produced, and OH negative is anion, so it will move towards anode and less volume of oxygen will be produced as compared to hydrogen. So option C seems to be correct. In part D we have ethanol, as ethanol does not conduct electricity, so therefore electrolysis cannot take place. Correct answer is therefore C. Question 14. Which statement about ionic compounds is correct? A. Ionic compounds conduct electricity when solid. This is incorrect because in solid, ions are fixed and therefore they cannot conduct electricity. Part B. Ionic compounds consist of lattice of positive ions and negative ions. This is a true statement. For example, in sodium chloride, we have sodium ions that are surrounded by negative chloride, and each chloride is again surrounded by a positive sodium. Part C. Most ionic compounds are solids at room temperature because of the strong attraction between electrons and positive ions. Now, ionic compounds are always solids at room temperature. This is because of the strong attraction between negative ions and positive ions. So statement C is wrong. Part D. When molten or in aqueous solution, ionic compounds conduct electricity. This is true because they contain electrons that can move. Now this is incorrect because the conduction is due to the presence of free ions rather than free electrons. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 15. The diagram shows apparatus that can be used to extract aluminum from its ore. What are J, K and L? This is J, this solution is K, and this is L. Now you must know the names of these. J is black in color and it is carbon anode, which is positive. K is electrolyte, that is electrolyzed using this electrolysis process, as it is aluminum ore. So therefore K consists of aluminum oxide dissolved in cryolite. High temperature is present, so therefore this is in molten form. Temperature is about 950 degrees centigrade. L is liquid aluminum, which is taken out from here. This inner lining portion is of carbon cathode. Now we can see that J is carbon anode, which is positive. So J is positive electrode. K is the electrolyte, that is aluminum oxide along with cryolite. Cryolite is added to reduce the melting point of aluminum oxide. L is molten aluminum as it is separated. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 16. The diagram shows the energy profile for a reaction. On y-axis we have energy and on x-axis we have progress of reaction. These are the reactants and this is the product. Which statements about this reaction are correct? Number 1. More energy is needed to break the bonds than is released when new bonds are formed. Now you should always remember that breaking bonds requires energy, so therefore bond breaking is endothermic in nature. While when new bonds are formed, energy is released, so therefore bond formation is always exothermic. Now it says more energy is needed to break the bonds. It means it is more endothermic as compared to exothermic, so overall reaction is endothermic. Let's see whether this is correct or wrong. Enthalpy change of a chemical reaction can be found by subtracting these two. We have energy of products minus energy of reactants. Now as we can see that the product energy is lower than the energy of reactant, so therefore subtracting these two will give negative result. So as enthalpy change for this reaction is negative, it means this reaction is exothermic in nature, it is not endothermic. So statement 1 is wrong. 2. Route 1 and route 2 give the same overall equation for the reaction. As we can see that the reactants and products are unchanged in both route 1 and route 2. Only the activation energy is changed. There is no change in the product and the reactant, so therefore statement 2 is correct. 3. Route 2 involves the use of catalyst. Now catalyst decreases the activation energy. Now we can see that in route 2 less activation energy is needed as compared to route 1, in which more activation energy is needed. So therefore this statement is true. In 4 we have that the reaction is exothermic. As we have already found out the enthalpy change, which is negative, so it means that the reaction was exothermic. This statement is true. As option 2, 3 and 4 are correct, answer is C. Question 17. The diagram shows the fractionation of petroleum. We have crude oil, which is fractioned into different fractions. We have petrol, naphtha, paraffin, diesel, lubricating oil. Which row shows the correct use for the fraction? In A we have bitumen, which is used as a lubricant. This is incorrect because bitumen is used for road surfacing. In B we have diesel, and diesel is used as a fuel in cars. It is not used for aircraft engines because in aircraft engines kerosene is used. Option C we have naphtha. Naphtha is used as feedstock for chemicals. So this is also incorrect. In D, we have paraffin, which is kerosene and it is used for heating and cooking. This statement is true. Answer is therefore D. Question 18. Which compound is a constituent of petroleum crude oil? Petroleum is actually a mixture of hydrocarbons. Mainly alkanes. Let's look into the options. In option A, we have C2H5OH. OH functional group is present in alcohols and this is ethanol. As alcohol is not present in petroleum, so therefore A is incorrect. In B, we can see that we have COOH as functional group, so this is ethanoic acid, as it is carboxylic acid. This is also incorrect. In part C, the formula is C8H18, which comes under alkane, because for alkanes the general formula is CnH2n plus 2. So we have 8 carbon atoms and 8 into 2, 16 plus 2 will become 18 hydrogens. The name of 8 carbon alkane is octane. As petroleum consists of mixture of hydrocarbons, mainly alkanes, so therefore C could be correct. In part D, we can see that the formula is C6H12O6, which is glucose. Now glucose is not present in petroleum, so therefore D is wrong. Correct answer is therefore C. Question 19. A student wrote 2 conclusions about calcium carbonate. First is that the reaction with dilute hydrochloric acid is faster with powdered calcium carbonate than with large pieces of calcium carbonate. Second conclusion is that grinding large pieces of calcium carbonate to form powder increases the surface area. Which statement is correct? For calcium carbonate, the rate of reaction will depend on the surface area. Larger the surface area, faster will be the rate of chemical reaction. Now we know that powdered calcium carbonate has more surface area as compared to large pieces, so therefore conclusion 1 is correct. Similarly, grinding larger pieces will make it powder, so therefore powder would have more surface area, so conclusion 2 is also correct. Now we can say that both conclusions are correct and conclusion 2 explains conclusion 1. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 20. A compound decolorizes acidified potassium manganate 7. What could this compound be? Number 1, we have magnesium chloride. Second is iron chloride. Third is ethanol. In magnesium chloride, we have magnesium plus 2. Now magnesium plus 2 cannot be further oxidized to magnesium plus 3 because it is a group 2 member and it only has plus 2 oxidation state. So oxidation of magnesium chloride will not occur. Second is iron 2 chloride. Now in iron 2 chloride, the oxidation state is given as it is a transition element. Iron is plus 2. It can be further oxidized to iron plus 3. So oxidation can occur for iron plus 2 as it is a transition element. And when iron plus 2 is oxidized to iron plus 3, potassium manganate will be decolorized. In option 3, we have ethanol. Now ethanol can be further oxidized by potassium manganate to carboxylic acid. So as ethanol is oxidized, potassium manganate will be reduced, so it will be decolorized. Option 3 is also correct. As only option 2 and 3 are correct, answer is C. Question 21. Nitrogen reacts with oxygen In an equilibrium reaction, this is equilibrium. Enthalpy change is positive, which means that the reaction is endothermic in nature. When the reaction is at equilibrium, which statement is correct? Part A, the concentration of nitrogen present will change with time. Now, in an equilibrium reaction, the rate of forward reaction is equal to the rate of backward reaction, and at equilibrium, the concentration of reactant and concentration of product is always constant. It does not change with time. B, the forward and backward reactions are taking place at the same rate. This is true because at equilibrium, the rate of forward reaction is equal to the rate of backward reaction. C, the forward reaction releases heat energy. Now we can see that the reaction is overall endothermic. It means that forward reaction is endothermic, so forward reaction absorbs heat energy. Option D, there are more molecules on the left hand side of the equation than on the right. Now number of molecules can be found out by finding number of moles. Greater number of moles means greater number of molecules. Now we have 1 mole of nitrogen, 1 mole of oxygen, so in total we have 2 moles of reactants. We also have 2 mole of product, so therefore number of molecules on both sides will be equal. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 22. A solution of W has the following properties. When added in excess to solid ammonium chloride, a gas is given off that turns damp red litmus paper blue. When added in excess to a solution of pH 3, the resulting solution has a pH of 13. What is W? First thing is that you should always remember whenever ammonium salt is added to alkali, it forms ammonia gas. Along with salt and water. Now ammonia gas is basic in nature and it can turn red litmus paper to blue. So we can say that W is an alkali, so therefore alkali is a strong base. In option 2 we have when added in excess to solution of pH 3, which is acidic. In acid solution, when it is added in excess, the resulting solution pH becomes 13, so it means we have strong base that is added. Answer is therefore B. Question 23. Pure lead 2 sulfate is prepared by mixing two substances X and Y. When the reaction is complete, the mixture is filtered. Pure lead 2 sulfate is obtained. We have this residue, which is lead 2 sulfate because lead 2 sulfate is insoluble. Which row shows the best way to prepare pure lead 2 sulfate? Now, as lead 2 sulfate is insoluble, so therefore it will be prepared by precipitation reaction. In precipitation method, we take two solutions that are soluble and they react together to form insoluble salt, which in this case is lead 2 sulfate. Let's look at the options. Substance X must be soluble in aqueous. Substance Y should also be soluble and aqueous. So we can take lead 2 nitrate as substance X because all nitrates are soluble. We cannot take lead 2 carbonate because it is insoluble. Similarly, substance Y should also be soluble. All sodium salts are soluble, so we can take sodium sulfate. Then we have method after filtration. Now after filtration, what will happen that we are going to wash and dry the residue, which is lead 2 sulfate. We are not going to crystallize the filtrate because filtrate does not consist of lead 2 sulfate. So therefore this option is correct. Answer is therefore B. Question 24. What are the percentages by mass of nitrogen in ammonium nitrate and in calcium nitrate? We are going to use the formula of percentage. So percentage of nitrogen is equal to atomic mass of nitrogen into number of atoms of nitrogen divided by the molecular mass of compound into 100. We have ammonium nitrate and calcium nitrate. Let's find out the molecular masses. In ammonium nitrate, we have 2 nitrogens, four hydrogen atoms, and we have 3 oxygen atoms. So it will be 3 into 16, which is the atomic mass of oxygen. So 52 plus 28 becomes 80. This is the molecular mass of ammonium nitrate. So percentage of nitrogen will be, atomic mass of nitrogen is 14. Number of atoms of nitrogen are 2 in ammonium nitrate. MR of compound is calculated. It is 80 into 100. So percentage of nitrogen comes equal to 35%. So it could be either C or D. Similarly, finding out the molecular mass of calcium nitrate, we have 1 calcium. We have 2 nitrogen atoms, as with the bracket we have 2. We have 6 oxygen atoms present. Adding all these 3, the molecular mass comes equal to 164. Now putting values in formula, percentage of nitrogen in calcium nitrate will be atomic mass of nitrogen, which is 14. Number of atoms in calcium nitrate is again 2. Molecular mass is 164 into 100. The percentage composition of nitrogen comes equal to 17%. Answer is therefore D. Question 25. The diagram shows 3 steps in the manufacture of sulfuric acid. In which steps is a catalyst used? Now catalyst is used in a reversible reaction in which sulfur dioxide, it reacts with oxygen in the presence of vanadium pentaoxide, which is V2O5, to form sulfur trioxide. As this is the only step in which catalyst is used, so therefore this is step Q. Answer is therefore C. Question 26. Which statement about the elements in the periodic table is correct? Part A. An atom of potassium has more protons than an atom of argon. From periodic table we can find out the number of protons by looking at the atomic number. The atomic number of argon is 18, while the atomic number of potassium is 19. So therefore potassium has more protons than an atom of argon. This statement is true. Part B. Elements in same period have similar chemical properties. This is incorrect because elements present in same groups have similar chemical properties. Option C. Elements that are non-metals form only covalent bonds with other elements. Now non-metals can form covalent bonds. They can also form ionic bonds with metals. So therefore this is incorrect. Part D. On descending group 1 from lithium to cesium, the metals become more reactive. This is because size of atom increases down in the group. So as the size of atom increases, the electron lost become easy. So when metal easily loses electrons, it becomes more reactive. Statement D is wrong. Answer is therefore A. Question 27. The position of 4 elements are shown on the outline of part of the periodic table. Which element is a solid non-metal at room temperature and pressure? This is the periodic table and these are the elements. We have A, B, C and D. From periodic table we can find out the groups and periods. This is group 3. Then we have group 4, 5, group 6, group 7 and this is group 8 or group 0. Then in periods we have first period, second period, third period, fourth and fifth period. Now looking at the periodic table, in group 3 and period 3 we have element which is aluminum. In group 6 and period 2 the element present is oxygen. In group 7 and period 3 the element present is chlorine. In group 7 and period 5 element present is iodine. Now A is aluminum and aluminum is a solid metal, so therefore A is incorrect. B is oxygen and oxygen is not solid, it is in gaseous form, so it is also incorrect. Again chlorine is also in gaseous state, while iodine is the only element that is solid non-metal at room temperature and pressure. Therefore correct answer is D. Question 28. What is not a typical property of transition elements? A. They form colored compounds. This is the property of transition elements as they form colored compounds. B. They have high melting points. This is also true because transition elements are metals and they have strong forces of attraction, so therefore they have high melting points. Part C. They have low densities. This is incorrect because transition elements are metals and they have high densities. Part D. They have variable oxidation states. This is also true as we can see that iron is present in +2 while it is also present in +3 oxidation state. Only incorrect property is C, so therefore C is the answer. Question 29. Brass is an alloy. Which statement about brass is correct? Now brass is an alloy and it is made up of copper and zinc. Both copper and zinc are metals. Copper is about 70% while zinc is about 30% of brass. Statement A, it contains a sea of electrons as brass is made up of metals, so therefore metals consist of sea of electrons. So statement A is correct. Part B, it contains positive and negative ions which are free to move. This is incorrect because negative ions are not present in metals. C, it is a compound of metal and non-metal. Now it is not a compound as alloy is always a mixture. In D, again it says it is a compound, which is incorrect statement. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 30. Which statement about the reactions of some metals and metal compounds is correct? A. Copper reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to form hydrogen. Now copper is below in reactivity series, it cannot react with dilute acid, so therefore this statement is wrong. B. Sodium oxide is reduced to sodium metal by heating with carbon. As in the reactivity series we can see that we have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum. Then we have zinc, iron, lead. Copper, silver and gold. Now the elements present below aluminum can be reduced by heating with carbon, while the elements above aluminum or aluminum cannot be reduced with carbon because they are more reactive. So statement B is incorrect. Option C, zinc carbonate is more thermally stable than sodium carbonate. As we can see that zinc is below in reactivity series as compared to sodium, so sodium carbonate is more thermally stable than zinc carbonate. Option D, zinc displaces copper from aqueous copper to sulfate. Now zinc is above copper, so therefore zinc can displace copper from copper sulfate to form zinc sulfate. This statement is correct. Answer is therefore D. Question 31. Which metal is used in the galvanizing of iron? Now galvanizing is actually a coating of more reactive metal. This coating resists corrosion of iron. Now A is calcium. Calcium is more reactive element, so therefore it is not used in galvanizing, as calcium will react with oxygen to form calcium oxide, which is soluble. In B we have copper. Now copper is less reactive than iron, so as more reactive metal is used, so therefore zinc will be preferred. In part C we have lead. Again lead is less reactive than iron, so therefore it is not used. Then we have one option left, which is zinc, and zinc is more reactive than iron. Now zinc can be used in galvanizing of iron. It will protect iron from further corrosion, and it will also act as sacrificial protection. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 32. Iron is obtained in the blast furnace from the ore hematite. Which process takes place in the blast furnace? Part A, calcium carbonate is used to remove acidic impurities. This is correct because calcium carbonate first decomposes into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. This calcium oxide is used to remove acidic impurities such as silicon dioxide. It will react with SiO2 to form slag of calcium silicate, which is then removed. B, coke is reduced to carbon dioxide. Now coke is pure carbon, and carbon cannot be reduced to carbon dioxide. It is oxidized to carbon dioxide. Part C, hematite is oxidized by carbon monoxide. Now carbon monoxide is a reducing agent. It reduces hematite to iron. The reaction can be written like this. We have hematite, which is iron oxide. It can react with reducing agents such as carbon monoxide, and it will form iron along with CO2. The equation can also be balanced. So hematite is reduced by carbon monoxide. This statement is wrong. Part D, hematite undergoes thermal decomposition. This is incorrect because hematite does not undergo thermal decomposition. It undergoes reduction reaction. Correct answer is A. Question 33. Aluminium is group 3 element. It is extracted from its ore by electrolysis. The position of aluminum in the periodic table indicates that its aqueous ion is likely to be 1. Its method of extraction indicates that aluminum is 2 in the reactivity series. Which words complete gaps 1 and gap 2? In gap 1 we can fit colored or colorless, as aluminum is a group 3 element, so therefore this is colorless element, because transition elements form colored compounds. Second thing is that in extraction it indicates that aluminum is high in the reactivity series because aluminum is extracted by the help of electrolysis. It cannot be extracted by carbon or decomposition. Answer is therefore C. Question 34. Which pair of gases are both non-acidic? Now, Non-acidic means that the gases can be basic or the gas can also be neutral. Option A, we have ammonia and methane. Ammonia is a basic gas while methane is neutral gas. So A could be correct option. B is carbon dioxide, which is acidic. So this is incorrect because both should be non-acidic. In part C, we have methane, which is neutral, and nitrogen dioxide. Again, nitrogen dioxide is acidic. So therefore, this is also incorrect. In D, we have nitrogen dioxide and carbon dioxide. Both are acidic in nature, so D is also wrong. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 35. Which term correctly describes the conversion of seawater into drinkable water? Now, seawater consists of dissolved salts which can be removed to make it drinkable. Part A is chlorination. Now, chlorination can be used to kill bacteria or pathogens. Still, salts are present, so therefore A is incorrect. Part B, we have desalination. Desalination means removal of salts. So when salts are removed, the water is drinkable. So B could be correct. Part C is filtration. Filtration only removes insoluble impurities. So filtration does not make seawater drinkable. D is neutralization, which is acid-base reaction to form salt and water. This is also wrong. Correct answer is desalination, B. Question 36. Which formula represents an alkane? Now, alkane is a saturated hydrocarbon having general formula CnH2n plus 2. So we can find out the formula. We have C31H33. This is not alkane, because according to this formula, when carbon is 31, then hydrogen should be 64. In part B, we have carbon 31, hydrogen 60. Again, this is incorrect. Hydrogen atoms should be 64. C is also incorrect. In D, we have correct number of carbon and hydrogen atoms. D is therefore correct answer. Question 37. Z is a compound that can be formed as the only other product when alkane C8H18 is cracked to produce butane. It decolorizes bromine water. It has a branched chain structure. What is the formula of Z? Let's do the first one. We have cracking of C8H18. Now when it is cracked, it forms butane. Butane is 4-carbon alkane having 4 carbon atoms and 10 hydrogen atoms. Now the other product is Z. Let's find out the number of carbon atoms. We had 8 carbons, out of which 4 carbons are formed in this product. So 4 carbon atoms are left. We had 18 hydrogen atoms, out of which 10 are consumed. So we have 8 hydrogen atoms left. So this is compound Z. Second statement says that Z decolorizes bromine water. It means Z should be alkene. In alkene, at least one carbon-carbon double bond is present. In third option, it says Z has a branched chain structure. Looking at option A, we have double bond that is present. But we only have 3 carbon atoms. We must have 4 carbons and 8 hydrogens. So therefore A is incorrect. In B, we can see we have no carbon-carbon double bond present. There must be at least one carbon-carbon double bond. In part C, again, we do not have any double bond between carbon atoms and there are only 3 carbons, so therefore C is also wrong. In part D, we can see that we have 4 carbon atoms and we also have carbon-carbon double bond that is present. The formula is C4H8. So this is correct as it satisfies all three statements. So therefore answer is D. Question 38. A carboxylic acid of molecular formula C4H8O2 reacts with an alcohol of molecular formula C3H8O to form an ester. What could be the formula of the ester that is formed? Now we have 4-carbon carboxylic acid. 4-carbon carboxylic acid is called butanoic acid. And we have 3-carbon alcohol which is called propanol. We can draw the structures of both. Butanoic acid is this one. We have 4 carbon atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have 3-carbon alcohol which is propanol. The structure of propanol is CH3, CH2, CH2. We have 3 carbon atoms and then we have OH functional group. So we can write this one in reverse. So it will be CH3, CH2, CH2, OH. Now in the formation of ester from these two, OH is removed from carboxylic acid, hydrogen is removed from alcohol. So both these react together to form water and rest of the compounds are attached to each other. So we can draw the product. We have CH3, then CH2, then again we have CH2, then we have this CO. In this CO, carbon is double bonded to this oxygen. So we can write C double bond O. The second structure will be this one. We have CH3, CH2, CH2 and oxygen. So we can write CH3, CH2, CH2 and then we have oxygen. This carbon is bonded to this oxygen through single covalent bond. So this shows the structure of ester that is formed. The name is, as we have 3 carbon alcohol, so it is propyl. And 4 carbon carboxylic acid is called butanoate. Now from the given options we can see that in option B it is similar to the one that we have drawn. Question 39. Some properties of compound J are listed. Number 1 is that it reacts with potassium carbonate to produce carbon dioxide. Second is that it reacts with ethanol to produce a sweet smelling liquid. Third is that it reacts with sodium hydroxide to produce a salt. What is the possible identity of J? Now for first one we know that carbonate reacts with acid to produce carbon dioxide. In second property we know that ethanol reacts with carboxylic acid to produce esters. Ester is a sweet smelling liquid. From third option we can infer that sodium hydroxide is an alkali, so alkali reacts with acid to produce a salt along with water. So compound J is acid, it is not alcohol, it is not ester. Correct option is therefore A. Question 40. Which partial structure represents nylon? Now for nylon you should remember that it consists of amide linkage, and in amide linkage carbon is double bonded with oxygen. Carbon makes single bond with nitrogen which is bonded to hydrogen. In A we have C double bond OO which is ester linkage, it is not amide linkage, so A is incorrect. Similarly in D we can see again we have ester linkage, so D is also incorrect. Both B and C consist of amide linkages. But in B we can see that this box and these boxes are not similar and there is no repeating pattern. So B is incorrect. In C, we can see that there is proper repetition pattern among boxes. We have lined, then blank, then lined, then blank. So as in polymer, there is proper repetition. So therefore, C seems to be correct. Answer is C.
Thanks for watching. A like, comment and subscribe will be highly appreciated. You can find related videos in playlists. Stay happy and enjoy learning.